Hello everyone, I am back with yet another video, and this is going to be another 3-for-1 basically, 2 cards but 3 different ways to use MFT's Sheer Shimmer Mist. It's part of the new Ingenious Inking Challenge that the design team can participate in each month. So I've got 3 different ways you can use the Sheer Shimmer Mist with my favorite things, dye inks. So for my first card, I took some watercolor cardstock and I die cut it with the Stitched Rounded Rectangle Stacks die-namics. And then I'd used my anti-static powder tool on that before stamping this outline image from the Spring Tulips stamp set, which I am kind of obsessed with lately. So I stamped the image with a Versamark, and then I'm going to coat it with Ranger's Liquid Platinum embossing powder, which is so pretty, and for whatever reason, I always seem to forget about it. So I was looking at my embossing powders today because I was going to do this with just white embossing powder, and then was looking at that and I'm like, oh, I have to use that. So, and besides, the last time I used the stamp set, I embossed it in white, so I wanted to do something a little different. So after pouring on the embossing powder and using a coffee filter so I can funnel everything back into the container and not waste any, heat that with my heat tool until it is completely melted. And then I'm just going to put an acrylic block over the remaining scrap of the watercolor paper just to make it easier to see where the ink is. And I'm just using that as my little palette, and I'm just smushing some of MFT's dye inks right onto this acrylic block, and I'm using Summer Splash and Tropical Teal, and then some Sour Apple and some Green Room dye inks. So just mushing a corner of the ink pad. Doesn't take very much to color in an image of this size. In fact, I could do several with this ink. And then I'm just taking the Sheer Shimmer Mist and shaking it up really well, and then spraying it right onto my craft sheet. So rather than using water to watercolor with, I'm just going to use the shimmer mist. So pick it up with my paintbrush, and then I'm going to mix in a bit of the the Summer Splash dye ink, and then just paint that onto the tulips. So super, super easy. The one nice thing about this I've kind of discovered is that it stays wet longer than just using water would. So it actually takes a fair bit of time to dry, depending on how thickly you apply it as well. So you can kind of have some time to fiddle and, you know, blend colors and all sorts of things. So super, super simple. And yeah, after I applied the Summer Splash, I went in with the Tropical Teal and added a bit of that. And then I cleaned off my brush and then did the Sour Apple for the leaves first, which was the lighter green, and then picked up a little bit of the Green Room, which is a little bit darker, and just brushed that on. And then just kept mixing in more of the shimmer mist as I felt necessary, and then just wiping the brush off between colors. So yeah, really easy to do, pretty much foolproof, especially with a nice little image like this. And then when it is fully dry, it'll be nice and shimmery. So once I was done coloring in the image, I'm going to set that aside to dry, and then I'm going to show a second way to use the shimmer mist with MFT's dye inks. This time I'm using one of the ink refills, and I'm going to create my own custom color shimmer mist. So I've just got a brand new mini mister bottle. Again, this is from Ranger. And I just mixed up the shimmer mist really well, and then poured some of that into the bottle. And then I have some snow cone dye ink refill here. And I started off with 2 drops because I wanted a really, really pale blue mist, like just barely tinted. So I started off with 2 drops, shook it up really well, and then decided I wanted it just a tint, like tiny bit darker. So I added a 3rd drop. But obviously you can do whatever you want with this. You can mix, you know, more than one color, fiddle around with the concentration, like anything. It's pretty much foolproof. You can just totally play around with it. So that is one thing I really like using the shimmer mist for, the sheer shimmer mist especially, is I can, yeah, mix it with any of MFT's dye ink refills and create a color that'll kind of coordinate with the cardstock, or create like a whole new color by mixing different inks, you know, like blue and yellow or whatever. So once I was happy with that, I've got my card base here and the Harlequin stencil. and some micropore tape, and I'm just taping the stencil from the back of the card right onto the card itself. Since I'm doing this right on the card base, I found this was the easiest way to adhere the card to the stencil without covering up any parts of the stencil, if that makes sense. So this way I can flip it over, the stencil is completely covering the entire card front, and then I'm going to lay down my little old spray towel here to kind of protect my work surface from getting covered. And then I just lightly mist my new custom mix over the stencil about 5 times roughly, and about a foot away, maybe something like that. And then before it's even fully dry, I'm just going to carefully peel off the stencil and the micropore tape. And really loving the micropore tape to so it doesn't cling too much, whereas, you know, painter's tape and that sort of thing might tear the cardstock. But so far, I am really loving this stuff. I'll be talking about it more in an upcoming haul video. Anyway, once I set that aside to dry, and once it was dry, I'm just applying some foam tape to the back of my main image here, and I'm going to adhere that to my card base. I decided to keep everything pretty clean and simple. I wanted it more to be the focus on like the shimmer effect. So adhered that, and then I die cut the word hello. This is from the Happy Hellos die-namics, and I just die cut some black licorice cardstock with that. And then to adhere that to the card, I'm just lightly dabbing some Tombow Mono Multi over the back of the die cut. So once I got all the adhesive just really lightly dabbed on there, I'm just using my tweezers to hold it in place while I place it onto my card front and press it down. So getting that in place and then fiddling with it a little bit more to make sure I get it straight, and just letting that little end of the O hang over. That's totally fine. Yeah, small enough amount, I'm not worried too much about that, like not being on foam tape or anything. It's just too delicate of a spot to even put foam tape, in my opinion, but I think it'll be fine. So to finish off the card, on the inside I just grabbed a sentiment from the Spring Tulip set and inked it up with black licorice hybrid ink. And then I grabbed the single tulip image from the set, and it's kind of hard to show on camera, but basically I kind of get eye level with the ink pad. That way I can use just the corner of the ink pad, and I inked up the bottom part of the tulip with sour apple ink, and then I inked up the actual petals with the same Summer Splash ink. That way I can get a dual colored image without having to tape off part of the image or fiddle around with it too much. It takes like 2 seconds to ink it up this way. So stamp that, and that finishes off card number 1 and the first 2 techniques of how you can use shimmer mist with the dye inks. So really fun, really simple. And yeah, the options are kind of limitless with this. For my second card, kind of the same idea, but it's a way you can get a multicolored background and shimmery without making several bottles of custom shimmer mist. So especially if you don't have several bottles on hand and don't want to waste a bunch of the mist, you know, emptying out bottles and cleaning between, which would just be a total pain. So all I did was tape the same harlequin stencil over a piece of smooth white cardstock. And then I'm using actually just the same colors. I'm pretty much using almost all the same supplies and just making a completely different card. So I taped the stencil down over the smooth white cardstock, and then I started with the Summer Splash ink and just sponged it on with my mini ink blending tool. And then I'm going on to the tropical teal color and sponging that on. And then I'm going to add green room, and then finally the sour apple ink. And I do keep separate sponges for all my colors. Right now I'm just keeping them in a drawer. I've got this little kind of divider in my desk drawer, and I just have them all labeled. I'm going to have to come up with something down the road, but I do have people asking that. And yeah, I keep separate sponges for every color. It just makes it easier in my opinion. So I'm not washing out sponges. You can get refill packs of these. You get like 20 in a pack. So a couple of packs of those, and I've got enough sponges for all my dye inks. And yeah, it's just more convenient in my opinion. So once I was done sponging all the colors in a nice little gradient, I got my towel out again, and this time I'm just spraying the shimmer mist directly onto the stencil. I'm not mixing it with anything. Only spraying it like two to four times roughly. I don't want to oversaturate it because I don't want it to puddle up behind the stencil and cause the inks to run. But this way I get a whole shimmery background in 4 different colors in a nice gradient without using any different colored mists. So set that aside to dry. And I had some more die cut tulips that I had just die cut from scraps from the first card. So I die cut the watercolor cardstock scraps and then just stamped the tulips with the black licorice hybrid ink. And then I'd watercolored them the exact same way as I did the first card. So I just used up the ink I had left over and the same shimmer mist to watercolor these quickly. So yeah, same supplies, same colors, just a slightly different card. And then yeah, the same Happy Hellos die-namics. This time I just die cut the word hi from the black licorice cardstock and adhered that, and then added the little dot there. And I'm going to pop this up on foam tape as well because yeah, once I get started with the foam tape, I can't stop. So I'm going to apply some foam tape to the back of this piece, and then I'm going to center it onto my stenciled card front. And yeah, that piece was die cut as well with those stitched rounded rectangle stacks die-namics. So got that adhered into place, and then I'm going to adhere this to my card front with the Tombow Mono Multi adhesive since it was sitting out and the lid was off. So get that covered in adhesive, and then I'm going to adhere that to my card base, which is just smooth white cardstock, standard A2 size card, same as the other card. So 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. So then to finish off the inside of this card, I had a third die cut tulip. I was able to get 3 die cuts from the scrap of watercolor cardstock left over from the first card. So I used the third die cut and adhered it to the inside of the card, and then just grabbed another sentiment from the spring tulip set and inked it up with the black licorice hybrid ink and stamped that along the bottom of the card, and that finished it off. So as always, there will be a link below the video to my blog post with links to all the supplies used. So just make sure to check the description box below the video. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing and commenting and the thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.